Welcome to Office 2010 video number 45. Hey, we're talking about access, and I gotta make a note here. It's 12:44 March 7th, and we already downloaded this file right here. These are the notes for this big access project we're working on, Wooden Crafts. But as of right now, I changed all of the information about criteria, so you need to go and download this again. Unless you're downloading it for the first time after 12:45 March 7th. Hey, we are in Access. We have been working with our Wooden Crafts database for the last number of videos, and here it is. Now, let's remind ourselves of the definition of a database. A database does two things: stores raw data, and then creates information from that raw data. So if I open this product table, that's the raw data. That's in a table. And in the last couple of videos, we not only created the table, but we also created a form, and we used the form to enter data or search for data. So part number one to a database, stores raw data. Part number two, create information from that raw data. So let's look at this table. For example, you could ask the question. And for us, we're going to jump into the realm of queries now. Queries are when we ask a question of our database and then get some answer. So for example, we could say, hey, show me the records for SC. The answer would be to eliminate all the records that are not SC and just have a small table with just SC. That would be our answer. That would be our information. We'd use that to then analyze and do whatever it is we want to do with SC. So ask a question, get an answer. That's what we're going to do with queries, and that is the creating information from raw data part of databasing. All right, so where are we going to go? We're going to go to Create. And right here in the Create ribbon, there's the Query group, and we're going to use Query Design Mode. So I'm going to click on this. And it's automatically going to give us this Show Table dialog box. It's just being polite. It said, hey, which table do you want to ask a question of? So I'm going to double click on this one. Click Close. Now this is the field list. I can't see them all, so I'm going to point to the edge. When I see that diagonal arrow, I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to come to the middle here, and when I see that cursor, I'm going to click and drag up. Here, I'm going to drag down just a little bit. So here's the field list, and this is where we create our question. Now our first question, we're just going to say, hey, database, show us just SC. And we only want some of the fields, not all of them. So I'm going to do product ID. Oh, I just double clicked and it popped down there. And then I'm going to do description. So this is a field list. Anytime you double click or click and drag, you're then starting to create your question. Right now we have the ability to ask questions of these two fields. We want to see product ID and description. How about on hand, selling price, and supplier code? Now, right now, this is a question. We haven't put any criteria in yet, but this is just a simple query saying, hey, just show me some of the fields, not all of the fields. Let's go look at our answer. And by the way, you can see it says query 1. We haven't named it yet, but we've been using this toggle throughout the this access section of the class to just click back and forth between where we design our objects and the result. Now, here's where we asked our question, and then we can click on this, and there's our result. Oh, look at that. So this is just a simple query. We said, hey, show us just some of the fields, not all of the fields. Right? Because sometimes, for example, you want to see selling price information, but not cost information. So this is like question number 1 in our handout. And in fact, I'm going to go back underneath. Before we add criteria here, I'm actually going to save this. And this actually has one extra field as compared to the description in the handout. But no problem. Our goal was just to see that, yeah, we can ask a question here. Let's go ahead and save this. Control S. By the way, run is the same as clicking this data sheet here. All right, I'm going to Control S. And what do you think a good name for this? Remember, we're going to use our naming conventions we've used throughout the whole class. And in the textbook, Chapter 2, they have you name each query, query 1, query 2, query 3, query 4. That's not a good name. because when you come back later, you have no idea what the query is about. So this is just show. I'm just going to give it a real practical show all products on hand and sell price. And then click OK. And just like that, we have a new group. And there is, I'm going to expand this. And there's our query. Let's go ahead and close this. Let's go ahead and double click and open this. Oh, there it is. Notice when you double click, it opens in data sheet view here. I'm going to close this. If you want to go straight to design view, you can right click design. And it goes straight to design view. Now, let's go ahead and create our next query. That's query number 1. Query number 2 is when we're going to take this one step further and add some criteria. So I'm going to go to query design. I'm going to show my table, close this, pull the field list down, pull this up a little bit. All right, this next one, I want to show those same fields. So I'm going to double click, double click, double click, skip over cost, double click, double click. And now we're going to add some criteria. Notice it says criteria, field, table, whether or not you want to sort. That's just as easy as, ascending, descending. Whether or not you show, sometimes you have fields with criteria that are determining which records to show, but you don't want to show it, so you check and uncheck. We're going to have show all on all of ours. But criteria, there it is. So we can just come over here and type SC. And by the way, little sc is the same as big SC. All right. It's not case sensitive. Let's go ahead and look at this. Oh, that is so cool. We have, in essence, done what we did over in Excel, right, when we did filter. Now it's just showing, it's as if we filtered it on SC. I'm going to click this design view. The criteria, though, goes down here in this area here. All right, I'm going to Control S, and I'm going to call this show SC selling data, selling price data, or something like that. Something smart. So really, our question here, I always try to name these like the same thing as our question was, because the question we're asking with this query here is, hey, show me the selling price information for SC. All right, I'm going to go ahead and look at it one more time and admire it. OK, let's close this. All right, now I would like to do a similar query to the one we just did, show SC selling price. But instead of hard coding the SC in, I want a dialog box that'll ask us every time we run the query, hey, which supplier do you want to see data for? Now, I'm going to use the same setup that we had in this query in our next query. And I don't want to have to recreate it. So watch this. With this selected, I can use Control C. And then with it still selected, I can Control V. Now it's going to be polite. It's saying, hey, do you want a copy of this? Oh, no, I'm just going to give it the name. I'm going to call it show supplier selling data. And I'm going to put in parentheses the word parameter, as this is called a parameter query, as we'll see. Now, right now, they're exactly the same. Now, I'm going to just go right-click design to jump straight to design view. And instead of putting criteria here, we're going to use square brackets. Now, as we'll see later in this video, square brackets are what you put around field names when you're doing formulas. So I'm going to put a square bracket. And I'm going to type the word, or the phrase, enter supplier code, close square bracket. What you're telling Excel, what you're telling Access right now is this does not have any criteria. But with the square bracket in this data, a pop-up box will jump up and allow you to enter the criteria. So let's try it. I'm going to click View, and you'll see immediately it's not going to let us, because this is the pop-up message you get. So now I can type, watch, BH. Click OK. And there it shows BH. So let's close this. It's going to ask if you want to save. Yes, indeed, because I changed it. I changed the structure. And now every time I open this, double-click, it's going to ask me, who do you want to see data for? So I'm going to type SC, enter. Totally cool, a parameter query. All right, now our fourth query is going to be just a simple one. I'm going to go up to create design, immediately show the products, close, pull it down. And I want to do a simple query, but this time instead of selling price, I want to look at cost. So I'm going to double click product, description, cost, and that's it. I'm going to go run it, and there it is. It just shows me our cost. So we could see we can have criteria, but we can also, in essence, have our criteria be just show me some of the fields, not all the fields. Now I'm going to Control S, and I'm going to say cost and product, or product and cost, or something like that. All right, now I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back up to create. We'll go on to our fifth query. Now this one, we're going to show our products table. I'll erase you here. Pull this down, pull it up in the middle. We'll have to do that every time. This time I want to show all the records, and then we're going to add some special criteria. But I want to show you a cool way to add all of these fields at one time. If you click here, and before you click on the last one, can you remember from our studies of Excel, PowerPoint, Windows Explorer, and Excel and Word? What is the key I have to hold before clicking on the last one in order to highlight everything in between? Shift. And so I can use that trick we've been using. Once they're all selected, I can simply click and drag, and there they are. Now, if I go out here, this is the same thing as the table, right? But now I want to do what's called contains criteria. What I would like is to search for all of the products that contain rail. Now, we should have something like a midget railroad and a railway bridge or something like that. You know, if you have lots of wooden toys like this, you probably have a bunch of railroad-related stuff. Or maybe you have a bunch of Thomas railroad-related stuff. But now, we have to type the word rail. Now, right now, that would not work for our particular goal here because it would look just for the word rail. But if you put an asterisk before and after, it means search for anything that contains the word rail. Now, the way this works is that asterisk can mean 0 or more characters. So really what you're asking the database is, hey, in the description field, show me rail and anything 0 or more characters before or 0 or more characters after. So it could return the word just rail. That would be 0 before, 0 after. It could return the word railroad. That would be some characters after, or whatever. Let's go ahead and see how this works. I'm going to click on the view, and there it is. Contains. That is a very handy trick to know. For example, if you're searching through address data and you want to find businesses on a particular street or something like that. All right, I'm going to Control S, and I'm going to type contains rail. All right, let's do our next one. The next one, we're going to use some number criteria. I'm going to go up, create design, show the table, drag this down, drag this up. I'm going to show product ID description and supplier code. And then for cost. And I just simply want to do some criteria here. Now, back in Excel, we saw comparative operators, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and other comparative operators. Here, we're just going to type less than 10, and that's it. The small side of the comparative operator is pointing towards, the entire column, right? So it says find all the ones that are smaller. The big side of this is pointing towards the 10, so that means 10 has to be bigger than anything in that column, cost column, in order to show these 4 fields. Let's go look at our answer. Oh, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I'm going to Control S. I want to say something like less than, cost less than $10. Now, I put a $sign here. Don't put any $signs in the criteria. You just got to keep the numbers without the $sign. But here, this is the name of it, so that's perfectly all right. Click OK. Wow, look at all of our cool queries. Now, the beauty of these queries, and we saw this in the very first video, of course, is if right now, if I double click this, we could see all of these. But now if I go change any of the source data, the coal car, let's say the price moves up to 15, right? It won't show up in this query. So I'm going to go to the products form. I'm going to click here and Control F. I'm going to type coal. And I don't want whole field. I want any part because I'm searching for just a part of coal. All right, and then click Find Next. And so now I found it. I can close this if I change this to 10. Oops, 10. And then close it. Notice I'm not saving the raw data. Oops, what did I do? Uh-oh. Let's try that again. That was the old clicking without paying attention. All right, I'm going to click right here, Control F, Find Next. Now I'm going to try this again, 10. OK, so that should work. I'm going to close. All right, and now when I go to cost less than 10, now that particular item is not there anymore, the coal car. So these are totally dynamic. That's why you name them smartly. And you probably, if you're running a business or entity or whatever, you're probably running the queries often. And so it's totally dynamic, totally amazing. All right, I'm going to change this. I'm going to go back over the products table. Since this is small, I'm just going to come here and coal car, I'm going to change to 7. So you can go either in the table or the form. I'm going to close that. Notice I didn't save the raw data. Now let's create our next query. This one will be a greater than or equal to. So I'm going to go to Create, Design, Show the Products table. Drag this up. And let's see, product ID, description, and sell price. So boop, sell price. And I'm going to do greater than or equal to. Now, as we talked about it back in Excel, there is no single character for greater than or equal to, so you just have to type 2 characters. The equal sign always comes second. All right, let's go and run this. And there it is. Sell price greater than 20. I'm going to Control S. And what should we call this? Hey, sell price. Oh, greater than or equal to 20 bucks. All right, now we want to talk about and, A-N-D, and OR criteria. So I'm going to go to Create. I'm going to show the table. Pull this up. All right, now let's go ahead. This is number 8 in our handout. I'm going to show all the records where sell price is less than 15 bucks and on hand is equal to 10, or is greater than or equal to 10. So let's show it. Let's show all the fields here. Again, I didn't say that right. This is going to be an and criteria. There's going to be 2 things that have to be true in order for a record to show. I'm going to drag this down here. Now, the first one is we want to say, please show me sell price less than 15. And a second thing has to be true in order for this record to show. I'm going to say on hand right here, greater than or equal to 10. Now, notice something very important. And criteria has to be on the same line. This is on the same line. And the way I remember it is I always look over here to the side, and there's a visual cue. Bill Gates and their pals put the word or here, which means all of these are available for or. We'll do an or criteria in our next query. But or criteria goes on different rows. All right, so if you want 2 things to both be true, they go on the same row. Now, there are some other ways to do this. We could, but the reason why I remember it as 1 row for and more than 1 row for or is because it's the same over in Excel if you're doing advanced filter, which we didn't do in this class. But it's kind of nice that they work the same way in both places. All right, so there you go. Let's go ahead and try it. Every single time the record gets shown, there's going to be a true for this, which means the on hand is greater than or equal to 10. And there's a true for this, less than 15. Let's go ahead and look at the results. And there it is. Let's test it. Remember, two things have to be true. Both get a true, true. On hand, less than or greater than or equal to 10, true. Sell price less than 15, true. Same with here. Greater than or equal to 10, ding, 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 true. Less than 15, true. All right, let's save this. Control S, and I'm going to type something like sell, just SP less than 15, and on hand greater than or equal to 10. Okay, and then click OK. All right, so that is an AND criteria. Now let's do an OR. I'm going to close this query, go back up to Create, show the products table. We're using the products table every time. You can use any of those or any combination. We will have one in just a few queries ahead where we do multiple tables at the same time. All right, now this one we're going to do OR. I'm going to show all fields again. By the way, you can show, this button right here shows all the fields, but then you can't do criteria on individual fields. So I'm going to highlight all of these, drop it right here, and I'm going to go over to supplier code, and I want to show SC or BH. So I'm going to type SC. You actually can type OR right here. But I remember it this way because as you get more complex queries, your OR criteria is listed this way. So I'm going to type BH. So on different lines. Now let's go ahead and run this. And there it is. True, true, true. Each one we get a true. So this one is different. It looks at every record in the original table. And it says, is this equal to SC? If it gets a true, then immediately it's pulled out. If it's a false, in this case, it would have been, is it equal to SC? False. Is it equal to BH? True. And so that means it will extract it. So in terms of logic, there's two logical tests, but only one of them has to come out to be true to show the record. All right, I'm going to Control S, and I'm going to say SC or BH, or maybe something like supplier SC or BH. Click OK. All right, now we get to do some formulas. Let's go to Create, Design. I'm going to show the products table. I'm going to pull this up. Now we get to do our first formula. Now we're going to calculate inventory value. So I'm going to show product ID and description. And I'm going to make a calculation. Now watch this. We can type it right here. I'll zoom in when I do the video. Or you can just type your formula here, or you can right-click and point to zoom. And it just gives you a little bit more room here. Well, let's go ahead and do it this way. Okay, ready? There's two syntax things we have to remember here. We have a calculated column, and it's going to have a new label, which it means it's a new field. It's going to be called inventory value. Well, there is no field called inventory value, but we can type the words. Now, in order to get it to recognize as a new label or field name, calculated field name, you have to type a colon. So the first syntax we're learning is colon. And the way it works in formulas is everything before the colon is the new name of the field, and everything after is the formula. Now, think about it. How do you calculate inventory value? Well, there's lots of ways. But for us, it's how many we have on hand times our cost. So really, we're multiplying two fields. Now, the second syntax you have to remember is square brackets. If you use cost times on hand, that will not work. And the reason, I mean, it's perfect. Field name times field name. But it won't work unless you put them in square brackets. That's just the way it is. These square brackets also show up in Excel if you're ever doing formula, table formula nomenclature. A square bracket here in Access and sometimes over in Excel means this is the field name. All right, let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to click OK. This is exciting, our first formula. I'm going to run. Ding, ding, ding. There it is. Now, this is an example of you a calculated field where we avoid redundancy, right? We already have the raw data information, which means on-hand units and costs stored in a table. So you never take up space by typing in values like this. You make a calculated field. Wow, that's totally cool. I'm going to Control S, and I'm going to give this a good name. What's a good name for this? Oh yeah, inventory value. And we'll make a report out of this one later. Let's just go test it. This is too cool. Our first formula in Access. I'm going to go change Barnyard Friends. So I'm going to go to the products form, Barnyard Friends. I'm going to change the cost to $1, just temporarily. Close this. Now I'm going to come back to my inventory value, double click, and now there it is. Just totally awesome dynamic table. Later, we'll see the real power of the database, right? We have some raw data there. This is a query inventory value. There's the answer. And we'll make a report of it, right? So you'll never have to do your calculations again. You just automatically print out your report each end of each week or whatever, and it's totally dynamic. The query here and later the report obviously are connected to that raw data stored in the table. I'm going to close this. I'm going to come over to Products and Barnyard Friends. I don't remember what the amount was. Can someone please tell me what the amount was? Oh yeah, 27, right? Thank you for whoever said that. Just kidding. All right, so 27. Let's close this. All right, now let's do another formula. Create, design, double clicks products. Pull this up. Let's calculate gross profit. So we'll do something like product ID description, and then gross profit. Right click, zoom. You don't have to. You can type it out there. Gross profit colon is the syntax that says everything before is a label, everything after is a formula. It is selling price. And I'm going to type my square brackets. I got my square brackets. Selling price. I hope I spelled that right. There's actually a great feature. You can actually build these. You don't have to type these out, but we're typing them out. All right, so it's sell price minus, not times, cost in square brackets. Now, just to show you what happens, let's misspell something. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click Run. It doesn't have any idea what's going on. We've misspelled a field. And remember how earlier we did a parameter query, and we typed some text that was not the name of a field into square brackets. So that's what's happening here. I'm going to click Cancel, and then I'm going to edit this. I know that there's some trouble. As soon as I see that, I know I did not spell the field name correctly. So I'm going to zoom and try cost. Click OK. Let's run it. Let's see if this works. Oh, I still got it right. Selling price. Oh, OK. So I didn't pay attention earlier. I'm going to click Cancel. I don't remember what I called it now. In the handout, it said sell price. Let's try this one. There it is. So as we said earlier, if you misspell something, you have to misspell it everywhere else throughout the database, because that's in essence what communicates with that table. So I had both cost and sell price field names incorrect. But now that they're correct, I'm going to click this, and there it is, the gross profit. So when we sell a Barnyard Friends, there is just the difference between cost of goods sold and the sell price, 23 bucks. All right, I'm going to Control S and call this something smart like gross profit. Click OK. Click OK. All right, our next query or next question is going to be, hey, please calculate the average selling price. So I'm going to show that products table. And watch this. I'm going to just double click selling price once. This is going to be an unusual query. It's going to be on one field. And we need to show the total rows. There's a button up here for totals, or you can right click totals. And sure enough, there's something called total. You come here, go to the drop down, and there's a bunch of functions here. Let's do average, AVG, and that's it. When you click, can you guess what the result will be? since this is a field, right? And that's a single calculation. When you calculate an average, it gives you a single number. So let's go ahead and click on this, and that's it. It just gives you a single number. This is not something you're necessarily going to print out as a report, but it is a useful query, right? As time goes on, we can see whether our average price is going up or down. Now I'm going to Control S, average sell price, and then click OK. So we see right there average selling price. Now I'm going to immediately, this one's useful in that it gives us a single average, but I'd like average for each particular supplier. So I'm going to copy this and Control V. And immediately I'm going to say average sell price for each supplier, or something like that. That's our question we're going to ask of the database. All right, so now right-click, design. Well, let's see. This gives us all of them. What if we drop the supplier code over here? By default, it says group by, and that's it. It will group by this. So it in essence, will look through this field, find out a unique list, meaning give me one of each different thing that's in this column, and then it'll calculate the average for it. So when I come over here, there it is. So we've bought from these 3 suppliers, and the average sell price for each one, there it is. Control S. Now let's do the same thing again, but here, let's copy this one. Control C, Control V. And now what I'd like to do is do that parameter query again. So I'm going to say average sell price for each supplier, and then in parentheses I'll do parameter. And then click OK. There it is right there. Right-click design. And now I'm going to come down here to the criteria row. And the same thing we did before, square brackets, enter supplier code. Now, remember, we've run into this a few times. Here we're using it to our advantage. That thing spelled inside the square brackets doesn't exist as a field name, but that's what we want here. Earlier, when we did our formula earlier and had trouble, it was not what we wanted. All right, let's go ahead and click this. Enter supplier code. I'll say SC. And there it is. All right, I'm going to close this. It's immediately going to say, do you want to save it? Yes. All right, now I'm going to actually do 16. Now this is between criteria, and then we'll do the 15th one, which is a query between 2 tables. All right, so we're going to go to Create, Design, Show the Products table. Drag this up, drag this down a little bit. Let's show product ID, description, and selling price. And now we want to do between criteria. We did contains criteria. We did an or criteria. We did an and criteria. This is a between. I'm just going to say between 15 and 25. And this is kind of cool here. We get to mix words between 15. So there's a word and a number, and 25. And it'll know what to do. Can't do this in Excel, right? I mean, you can do between criteria, but you have to do greater than or equal to 15 and less than 25, or less than or equal to, or however it is. So let's click Control. Oh, let's run it and see what we get. And there it is, values between those 2 bookends. Control S. How about sell price between 15 and 25? Now notice, look at all these queries, and that is often the case, right? Because all the data analysis done inside of a database is a lot more of that than there is, raw data stored in tables. So we have lots of queries there. All right, let's go ahead and close this. Now our last query, we're just go to Create, Query and Design, and let's show 2 tables, products and suppliers. No big deal. I mean, we'd only do one of these here, but you can ask questions across multiple tables. That's kind of a nice, amazing thing. And, you know, in our class, we never got to, the super advanced formulas where you do data extraction with formulas. It's all of this is possible over in Excel. It's just a lot harder. So learning a little bit of Access like this to do queries across multiple tables like this is just awesome because it's so easy. All right, so now this one, we want our question of the database is going to be, please make a reorder phone list. So I need some, well, how do you determine whether something is, we need to reorder it? Well, let's say on hand is less than 5. So that's an example of a field from here. But guess what? We need the information, first name and telephone number from this table. So luckily they're joined. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do supplier code, first name, last name, and telephone. And then from over here, we probably need product ID. Let's see, we got product ID. So and the description. I'm going to do on hand or cost next, and then on hand. Notice we have a lot of fields here. Now we come over here, and we're simply going to say, well, let's look at the answer right here, right? And notice there's lots of duplicates. We will, when we get to our report, see, they're individual products, so we need to show each one of these. But when we get to a report, we'll group, and it will show only the name and the telephone number one time, and then all of the products underneath. But there it is. That's all of the records. We need to exclude and only show the ones less than 5, or less than or equal to. So I'm going to go back underneath, and on hand, I'm going to say less than 5. And now when I run this, you can see ding, ding, ding. There we go. Those are the ones. And it's totally dynamic, right? When we reorder, these will not be in this reorder phone list. All right, I'm going to Control S and call this reorder phone list or something like that. Click OK. All right, so that was a lot about queries. In our next video, our last video on Access, we'll make 2 reports, one from inventory value and reorder phone list. And then we actually have one final video that will kind of, we'll do a mail merge between Word, Access, and Excel. All right, see you next video.